Hi, my name is Emily. I have always loved telling stories, ones that make people feel, that take them to places they've never been, and let them walk in someone else's shoes. Today, I want to share with you a story that's not only beautiful but filled with all the emotions life throws at us: joy, sadness, hope, fear, and those moments when we cry so hard it feels like we won't stop. This is a story about struggle, healing, and mental health. So sit back, take a deep breath, and let's dive right in. It all began with two friends, Jason and Lily, who had grown up in the same neighborhood. Their houses were right across the street from each other, and from the moment they could talk, they were inseparable. Jason, with his goofy grin and wild curly hair, was always the one to make Lily laugh, especially on the days when the world felt too heavy for her. But Lily wasn't always happy. From a young age, she felt something strange inside her, a deep sadness that she couldn't explain. At first, she thought it was just part of growing up. Everyone gets sad sometimes, right? But as the years went on, the feeling stayed. Some days she would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to move. It was like she was trapped under a heavy blanket that no one else could see. Jason was the only one who noticed. When she didn't show up at school, he'd bring over her favorite ice cream and sit with her. "It's okay," he'd say, even though he had no idea what she was going through. "You don't have to talk. I'll just be here." And for a while, that was enough. Just knowing someone cared gave Lily a tiny spark of hope. But things got harder as they grew older. High school was a whirlwind of homework, friendships, and pressures to fit in. Lily felt like she was drowning in expectations, grades, sports, and trying to seem normal when inside she was anything but. She started to pull away from Jason, too afraid he'd get tired of her sadness. One night, after months of pretending she was fine, Lily hit her breaking point. She sat on her bed with tears streaming down her face, clutching her phone. Should she call Jason? She didn't want to bother him, but she felt like she couldn't breathe. The weight on her chest was unbearable. Before she could decide, her phone buzzed. It was Jason. "I know something's wrong," his message read. "Please talk to me." And that was all it took. Those few words cracked her open. She called him, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. All the pain she'd been holding in poured out like a river. Jason didn't try to fix her. He didn't tell her to cheer up or look on the bright side. He just listened. And when her sobs finally turned into soft sniffles, he whispered, "Lil, I'm so proud of you for holding on. You're not alone in this." That night marked a turning point for Lily. She realized she couldn't fight her battles alone. With Jason's encouragement, she started seeing a therapist. The road to healing wasn't easy. It was filled with ups and downs, good days and bad ones. But for the first time in a long while, Lily felt like maybe, just maybe, things could get better. There were days when it all felt too much again, days when she cried until her eyes were swollen and red. But Jason was always there, reminding her that it was okay to feel that way. Crying isn't weakness, he told her one day. It's just your heart letting out the pain. Those words stayed with her, like a lifeline in the storm. As the months passed, Lily began to see the small victories. She got out of bed when she didn't want to, smiled at strangers, and even started drawing again, something she hadn't done in years. Each step forward, no matter how small, was worth celebrating. Jason had his own struggles too. There were moments when he felt overwhelmed, balancing school, work, and supporting Lily. But he learned that taking care of himself was just as important as helping his best friend. You can't pour from an empty cup, his mom used to say, and he realized how true that was. So, he started running every morning, finding peace in the rhythm of his steps and the cool morning air. Their friendship became a source of strength for both of them. They learned to lean on each other without fear of being judged. When Lily had a bad day, Jason would remind her of how far she'd come. And when Jason felt like the world was too much, Lily was there to listen, just like he'd always been for her. One rainy afternoon, they sat in a cozy cafe, sipping hot chocolate and watching the raindrops race down the windows. Lily looked at Jason and smiled. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think I was broken, but now I know I'm just human." Jason grinned. "You were never broken, Lil. You were just learning how to heal," and in that moment, they both knew that life would never be perfect, but it didn't have to be. They had each other, and that was enough. Over time, Lily found her passion in helping others who struggled like she had. She started volunteering at a mental health center, sharing her story with anyone who needed to hear it. And every time she saw the light return to someone's eyes, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Jason pursued his dream of becoming a therapist, inspired by his journey with Lily. He wanted to be that person for others, the one who listens, who cares, and who reminds them that they are never alone. Years later, as they stood together at Jason's graduation, Lily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. They had made it through the storm, and though the clouds still lingered sometimes, they had learned how to dance in the rain. Their story wasn't one of fairy tales or perfect endings. It was a story of struggle and pain, but also of hope and healing. It was a reminder that life is messy and hard, but it's also beautiful because every tear, every laugh, every moment of connection makes us who we are. And as Jason and Lily hugged each other tightly, surrounded by friends and family, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Because that's what true friendship is: a light in the darkness, a hand to hold, and a heart that says, I'm with you, always. This is the story of Jason and Lily, a story of two hearts that found strength in each other, a journey through the shadows, and the beauty of never giving up. And maybe, just maybe, it's a story that reminds us all to keep going, even when the road gets tough, because in the end, we are all beautiful in our own way, and every story deserves to be told. As life went on, Jason and Lily's friendship evolved, but their bond remained unbreakable. They were no longer the same teenagers who once stumbled through high school hallways, weighed down by their silent struggles. They had grown, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully, but always together. And while their lives began to move in new directions, the lessons they learned along the way stayed with them, guiding every step they took. Lily found herself standing on the edge of new possibilities. After years of working at the mental health center, she decided to go back to school and become a counselor. At first, the idea terrified her. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she failed? But Jason's words echoed in her mind. It's okay to be scared. Just don't let fear stop you. So, she enrolled in night classes and juggled studying with her volunteering work. There were moments when it all felt overwhelming, and tears streamed down her face late at night. But this time, the tears didn't feel like defeat, they felt like release. She was learning to embrace every part of herself, even the messy, vulnerable parts. Jason, too, was discovering the challenges of adulthood. Being a therapist was everything he had dreamed of, but it wasn't easy. Some days he carried the weight of other people's pain on his shoulders, and it felt heavy, so heavy that it threatened to pull him under. He often sat in his car after sessions, staring at the steering wheel, wondering if he could really make a difference. One evening, Jason called Lily. His voice cracked over the line, and she knew instantly that something was wrong. "It's hard, Lil," he whispered, his usual confidence stripped away. "What if I'm not enough for them?" Lily's heart ached for him. She knew exactly how it felt to question your worth, to feel like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough. "Jason," she said softly, "you don't have to carry the world on your own. You're doing your best, and that's enough. You're enough." They sat in silence for a while, the quiet hum of the phone call wrapping them in comfort. And in that moment, Jason realized that even those who help others need someone to lean on. It was okay not to be perfect. It was okay to feel tired. Lily's journey to becoming a counselor was full of challenges, but each hurdle made her stronger. Her first internship was at a shelter for young adults struggling with homelessness and mental health issues. She met people who had lost everything: family, friends, and hope. But within them, she also saw a flicker of resilience, a will to keep going despite the odds. There was a boy named Alex who reminded her a little of Jason, kind but guarded, with eyes that held more pain than words could express. It took weeks for Alex to open up, but when he finally did, Lily listened, just like Jason had listened to her all those years ago. And when he cried those deep, gut-wrenching sobs that came from a place too deep to reach, Lily held space for him. She knew how healing it could be just to have someone say, "I see you. I hear you," and in those moments, she realized that every tear she had shed, every struggle she had faced, had led her here. She wasn't just helping others, she was healing parts of herself she didn't even know were still wounded. Jason, on the other hand, began to explore the delicate balance between empathy and boundaries. He learned how to leave work at the office and take care of himself when the weight of others' pain became too much. He started journaling again, a practice he had abandoned in high school, and found solace in putting his thoughts onto paper. One evening, after a particularly rough day, Jason sat down to write about the moments that mattered, the small, seemingly insignificant things that had shaped his life. He wrote about the way Lily used to hum her favorite songs when she thought no one was listening. He wrote about the night they cried together on the phone, feeling broken but not alone. And he wrote about hope, not as something distant and unreachable, but as something that lived in the tiny moments of kindness, in the quiet assurance that even the hardest days would pass. Their friendship, once built on childhood games and sleepovers, had grown into something far deeper, an unspoken understanding that life was messy and unpredictable, but they didn't have to face it alone. They had each other, and that was enough. Years passed, and life continued to surprise them. Jason fell in love with a woman named Sarah, whose laughter was like sunshine on a cloudy day. Lily was the first person he introduced her to, and when Sarah pulled Lily into a warm hug, it felt like the missing piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Lily, too, found love slowly, cautiously, with someone who understood that healing wasn't a straight line. His name was Michael, and he never tried to fix her. Instead, he loved her exactly as she was, scars and all. There were weddings, late-night conversations, and quiet moments filled with gratitude. Jason and Lily stood by each other through every milestone, cheering each other on through the highs and holding each other close through the lows. But life wasn't always kind. There were losses, friends they had to say goodbye to too soon. Dreams that didn't work out the way they had hoped, and moments when the weight of the world felt unbearable. There were nights when Lily still cried until her body ached, and days when Jason questioned whether he was strong enough to keep going. But through it all, they remembered what they had learned. It was okay to struggle. It was okay to cry. And most importantly, it was okay to ask for help. One autumn evening, Jason and Lily found themselves sitting on the porch of Lily's house, wrapped in blankets and sipping tea. The air was cool, and the leaves crunched under their feet as they talked about everything and nothing at all. I used to think that life would get easier once we figured it all out, Jason mused, his breath visible in the crisp air. But now I know it's not about having all the answers. Lily smiled, the warmth of his words settling in her chest. Yeah, it's about showing up, even when it's hard, and knowing that it's okay to fall apart as long as you keep getting back up. Jason reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. We've come a long way, haven't we? Lily nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. They had weathered the storms, stumbled through the darkness, and found light in the most unexpected places. And as they sat together, watching the stars flicker to life in the night sky, they knew one thing for sure: life was far from perfect, but it was theirs, and that, in itself, was the most beautiful story of all. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about the destination, it was about the journey. The laughter, the tears, the struggles, and the triumphs. The moments that made them who they were, and the quiet, unshakable truth that no matter what came next, they would always have each other.